everyone, this is Direwolf20, and welcome to episode 3 of Direwolf20's Satisfactory Let's Play series, where today I'm again making some slight tweaks to the way my video is recorded. So curious what your feedback is on this episode. Let me know if the video looks better than last episode, even the second half of last episode after I made some first tweaks. Just let me know in the comments today. Video looks better, video looks worse, video looks the same, can't tell the difference, right? Otherwise, my plan for today is, obviously I'd like to get biofuel cooking like crazy, make the chainsaw, get the base building milestone unlocked. Looks like my pod's about to return here. Oh yeah, there he is. Hey buddy, welcome back. Sweet. And now I think we're ready to hand in more stuff, which I haven't made yet.
Milestone exchange concluded. Fix-it freighter re-entry complete.
Thanks, Ada. You are very helpful. So yeah, let's look at chainsaw today, getting the base building milestone, and the sooner we get base building in place, the better. And then I really want to get ramping up automation for copper and stone. Stone especially, because we're going to want to build a lot of base components, and that's going to need a lot of concrete. So automating concrete is going to be like 100% the first thing we want to do. So that's our plan for today's episode. Let's get started. All right, I think I'm ready to make myself a chainsaw. Hooray! So decent amount of components here, but not bad. And the other important thing about the chainsaw is that you only ever have to make one, unless you lose it. Unless you die and you lose it, right? So the chainsaw is super cool. Oh yeah. That's what's up. Now, the bottom left of the screen here, we'll see the chainsaw and a number 3 overlaying our solid biofuel. So the chainsaw requires solid biofuel in order to run. But it can also chop down trees and get us lots and lots of wood, leaves, and all kinds of other resources. And it's also pretty good about clearing in like an area. So I'll come over here and I'll just... Yeah. Goodbye. And you can see we got ourselves a healthy amount of wood and a healthy amount of leaves from that tree that we just cut down, which is a good time. And you'll notice also, like, here we go. Whoosh. See how it cleared that bush that was there, and it cleared the bush that was here? So even if you're like in a bushy-ish area, it'll clear like area of effect almost around the chainsaw, which is a good and bad thing. Like, be careful not to cut down these berry bushes, because I think you can cut them down with the chainsaw. And the downside there is that the berry bushes, if you don't cut them down, will regenerate over time. Woohoo! And you can see it blinking because I'm running low on biofuel, right? Not the end of the world, because don't forget, we can place a craft bench anywhere in the world, provided you have the resources. And we can come in here, and we can now immediately turn the biomass that we've gotten, or the leaves into biomass, and the biomass into biofuel. And look at this, we are already producing enough to make a ton of biofuel. So between the leaves and the wood, like, look how much biofuel we're getting already. I told you biofuel is going to completely change how you power your base. 100% accurate, right? As you can already tell. We're going to have hundreds of biofuel from the, what, 2 minutes worth of cutting down trees that we've just done. Now, the downside here is biofuel does take a little bit of time to craft. So you may or may not want to automate this. You won't be able to fully automate it, obviously. My recommendation is probably the best thing to do would be to make the biomass by hand and then make a crafter with like an input-output kind of thing. And we might wind up doing this. Depends how patient you are. If you're willing to sit here and let the biofuel craft happen manually, that's cool. You don't have to do the manual thing. Eventually, we'll get to a power system that is fully automated. Coal that comes from resource nodes that can be fully automated and comes out of the ground. But that's a little bit in the future. It's not that soon. So I'm going to craft all this biofuel here. And then what we'll do is use it to power up our base. The next thing I want to do is probably get the components for the base building milestone that we can see in the top right of the screen here. I think concrete is probably the one that I'm going to have to focus on the most right now. Now, in fairness, we did automate that already a little bit, right? Last episode. So that's good news. We should, in theory, have all the concrete we need. But I'll come back in a minute after I've crafted all this biofuel, and we'll see what's up. All right, now that I've crafted all my biofuel, let's come over here and see what's up. So we have a little bit of biomass. What I'm going to do is throw half a stack of solid biofuel into each of these so that they're kind of running at about the same duration there. So they almost, 22.5 seconds per biofuel. So that's going to last a long time. Not forever, but a long time. Now let's peek down here and see how our concrete production is going. Hopefully we've got a decent amount of concrete already, but maybe not. Oh wow, 154. All right, we are doing really good on concrete, actually. That is not bad production-wise so far. So yeah, we've got, 30 per minute coming out of here. We need 45 per minute for this to run full speed. So going back to our numbers talk from last episode, right, we are not keeping this machine running at full speed, right? So there's about 50% of the time he's offline, or I guess a third, right? So yeah, because it's 30 out of 45. So that's why it's showing you 67% machine efficiency right here, because we're making 30, we need 45 per minute. So this thing's not running at its peak efficiency, but we'll get there because there's things we can do to make that happen. So really close to having the appropriate amount of concrete. We'll be back in a minute once we have enough there, and then we should be good to start getting our base building milestone. And the reason I want to do that one quickly is because we can start actually building out foundations for our base, which will make things a lot more efficient and a lot more clean from a building perspective. And you'll see what I mean. If you don't know what I mean, you'll know what I mean pretty soon. All right, getting ready to go do my hand in here because I'm pretty sure I have access to hand in everything I need at this point. Hooray! Base building, ready for launch. Go, launch pod, go!
Milestone reached. You have unlocked several structures aimed to provide the first needed to build basic factory infrastructure and improved overview. Building these will provide a grid for more advanced organizing and sectioning of your factory.
Awesome. Sweet. Alright, so base building gives us access to foundations. Let me show you guys how these work, because they're super cool and super useful. And yeah, basically that's all she wrote. Now why are you doing that? That's a weird thing to be doing. Okay. Like I said, early access, they just released a big update to the game, so there's going to be a few little tiny bugs. So foundations are found under here, and I generally like to focus on a couple types of foundations. I like this one, and I like, I think this one is usually what I build with. So this foundation is pretty nice. You can do the 8x2, or if you want, you can do 8x4 as well. That's a little bit, taller of a foundation. That's a pretty thick foundation. Now the good news is that each of these use the same amount of concrete. So whether you want to go 8x1, 8x2, 8x4, it's all the same amount of resources to build. So even though like one's a lot thicker, you might think this is going to require 4 times as much resources. Nope. This is for decorative purposes for the most part. And the same for ramps. Well, no, actually, ramps do actually increase in cost. So that's funny. Ramps increase in costs, but regular foundations don't. That's a thing. Well, I guess ramps make sense because there's actually a real benefit to having that. But generally speaking, I like to do the 5x2, or you can do, if you want, the 5x1, up to you. Now, what's cool is you'll find that these guys snap to each other. So that's, a huge benefit. So if you're trying to build a nice foundation there, they'll snap. If you accidentally build one wrong, no big deal. And there you go. Ta-da! Also, if you have your deconstruct tool out, you can middle click to select a building and copy it. Huge useful thing to do, right? So like I said, the foundations are nice because they will allow you to kind of build on something a little bit more effective. Now, you can't mass build foundations until we install that mod that I've been talking about. We'll be talking about that mod very quickly. And you can also hold E to do a quick switch between things. So if you want to switch between that, you can do that. It's a super neat little thing. I think that's new in this version as well. It's pretty cool. Now, if you want to dismantle, here's a cool trick too. If you hold Control, you can highlight buildings and then let go of Control and they'll stay highlighted. So you can mass dismantle, but you can't mass place foundations. But there's a really cool mod called Smart, which I'm not sure if it's updated yet. If it's not, cool. It might. I think they were talking about updating it today or within the next couple days. So Satisfactory just had a major update to the game called Update 4, and just like Minecraft, mod developers had to update all their mods. So we're in that transitionary phase for Satisfactory mods where we're waiting for them to get updated. So I'm going to install Smart soon, and we will show you in the future how you can use Smart to mass build, because it is a awesome mod. Super cool. Very, very big fan of Smart. But now that we've got that done, let's do 2 things. 1, I'm going to let that concrete keep on cooking. Number 2, I'd like to come over here and see how much power we're using at the moment. Checked out this power graph here, right? We are getting pretty close to the consumption. So capacity is 40 megawatts, is that right? So that's all the way up here at the top of the graph. Max consumption, we're sitting around 22 megawatts. So that's probably what, the peak here is. So like power is going to fluctuate a little bit based on what's happening, right? Especially because the crafter down at my limestone quarry is not crafting 100% of the time. So it's going to craft, it's going to stop crafting, it's going to craft, it's going to stop crafting, back and forth, right? So we want to pay attention to our fuel consumption right here. It doesn't look too bad right now, which is nice. The other thing is the smelter here. Is it running? It is running at 100% of the time. So it says, oh yeah, look, it's idle now. Why is it idle now? Oh, I know, because we turned you on iron rods, right? So this guy making iron rods only needs 15 per minute. This guy's capable of producing 30, and this guy's capable of producing 30. So these machines are backstuffing at the moment. That's why we're having also other, up and down spiky power usage. But pay attention to your power usage because it's going to be very important very soon. Next step for me is I'd really like to fully automate, if I may, the copper production and really focus on getting copper wires fully automated and maybe even cables. I'm not 100% sure, what I want to do there. I might want to do cables in a little bit. So let's grab you. I'm going to pick up the miner. And how do I want to lay out this foundation? Part of me wants to cut down some of these trees here. And then, once they're cut down, we could build a little foundational area around here. Now, it just so happens that this copper vein is sitting right on the top of a cliff, right? So that's a thing that we want to be aware of. So what I'm thinking is we could clear this out a little bit, right? We could build like a little bit of a foundational platform around here-ish. And then run... You also can't build where your player is standing, FYI. We could run a conveyor belt down to that platform, and that might look pretty good, right? I like that plan. So let's do that. Let's get production line. We will get the miner. He's going to be outputting to there. And then this will be one of our first foundation buildings, right? Now, we definitely need more concrete. We need a decent amount of concrete. That's why I automated concrete early on. You're going to want a lot of this stuff. You're probably going to very quickly want to find another concrete vein, just so you can get even more and more of it, right? But coming over here and doing this will be super useful. Sweet. Now, what we can also do if we want is we can build ramps like so. And if we line it up nicely, we can probably find a nice, good way to do this. Or we could do it something like this and start there. But I find there's going to be a point. You kind of need to do like a platform and then a ramp on top of it. But that's not necessarily needed for maintaining the structure. So you can remove the platform underneath. And eventually we'll unlock a building that does this all in one go. But also Smart gives you a cool way to do this a little bit more easily. So, how cool is that? And now we have a kind of a ramp that'll get us up here again. Neat? I think that's neat. I like it. So there's a few ways, you can get around your base. I really need more concrete production like yesterday. But that's why we automate it. We'll speed that up pretty soon. So since I know I want so much limestone, let's head off in this direction. Because I just did a quick ping for limestone, and it looks like there's some limestone ore right in front of me that's really not too far away from my base. So what do we got over here? Well, we got an evil-looking creature. Gotcha. Yeah. What do we got here? Is this 1 or 2 veins? Looks like just 1. Okay. But how good of a vein is it? It's an impure vein as well. RIP! I was hoping for better. Come on. There we go. Finally broke the thing. Now, in order to build a miner here, we're going to need one of those little portable miner things. I don't know if I've called this out in the past, but those portable miners are necessary to make miners. So you need a portable miner in your inventory, and then it'll use it as a crafting component for the actual miner itself. So that's, important. Encroaching on another's clearance, huh? What clearance am I encroaching on? Oh, can't afford. Can't afford is I think the main problem. We need more concrete in order to place the miner there. All right, so I know we're going to need to bring power over here. So let's see how far we can bring this power line. So see the red change in the power line here? So about... Well, that's actually leading further than I thought. Did they change how far these can go? Wire is too long. So about here is your max distance. I don't know if they changed that. It seems longer than I remember, but, you know, it's cool. So about here. Cool. And then for now, because we don't have access to mergers and splitters yet for logistics, right, I'm going to just have another production line, right? So we're going to have our miner right here. That's strange that you're encroaching on others' clearance no matter what direction I build you in. What's up with that? Because it auto snaps to the node. So in what way are we encroaching on another's clearance? Is this another outcropping of pure limestone? That might be the case. Let's break this. That might be why we're getting that message at least. There we go. Yeah, there's another little... Usually there's only one per node there. That's funny. That might be another new thing in the game. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking. So let's get this guy up and running. I like this part. You ready? I like when it starts digging. It's so cool. And the drill, like, digs right into the node. There's a lot of little nuances like that. Also, these ladders, totally climbable. If you want to get up on top of the miner. Just FYI. There's a lot of cool things like that in this game. Just so's you knows. Alright, so then we need, in order to make a constructor, we're going to need another one of these dudes. So let's get a few more screws until we can make some reinforced plate. Break our crafting bench there. Place down our constructor. Run this dude into here. Get you cooking with concrete. And again, temporarily, we're going to have two completely separate systems. So we're going to have another storage connection here that's a little bit sloppy, but it gets the job done, right? And you're going to connect up to that power line that's right here. So now we've... Oh, didn't want to do that. Deconstruct you. There you go. Cool. And that looks good to me. And then all the limestone I picked up by hand, I'm just going to manually craft into concrete for a minute, and we'll be right back. So honestly, that's not an ideal setup, because now I have to go to two different places to collect my concrete, but it also doubles our concrete production, which is kind of cool. And I'll be able to build much better foundations. And soon, like I said, we will unify all this into a single place. But, you know, got to start small, baby steps. So I'm going to come over here and start finishing out the foundations that I have built up. Nice. And I'm going to just... I like to build my starting foundation on like kind of a higher terrain spot, which is why I started over here and then letting it snap, you know, as I did. Sometimes you'll see bushes through the terrain, through the foundation, but if they're big bushes, you can pick them up. But if they're like, you know, grass, it might be annoying. That's another reason I like to kind of start at a higher plane. You know what I mean? So now that we've got that running, let's say this is copper. Now, what kind of node is this? Was this another impure copper node? It is a normal copper node. Normal copper node, which means that he's making 60 copper per minute, not 30. Big difference, which is a good big difference, actually. What it means is we will be able to get a lot more copper out of that node per minute, right? So again, all nodes are infinite, right? This is just going to be how fast we can get things. So what I'm going to do is just bring a power line right over here. And you'll notice when you're placing on foundations, power lines kind of snap a little bit, right? And I'm going to kind of place one every 2. And that seems pretty cool. So when you're placing on foundations, things will snap a lot better, and that's why you want to place on foundations. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a conveyor belt right down to about here, right to the edge, and try and make it as neat and clean as I can. So notice as I'm placing it here, it snapped, right? Like that's an important thing to note. Like as I'm placing it, it's snapping to different spots. As opposed to when you're placing it on the ground, it's not snapping at all. Now, if you don't want it to snap, you can hold left control, and it'll... Well, actually, hold left control forces it to snap to certain grid lines. So that's like more snapping. I think there's a way to completely, you know, disable snapping. Let's see. There's probably something. There's a way to prevent snapping altogether, but placing on foundations like this is definitely more efficient if you want like a nicer looking structure, which is recommended. Now I'm going to place down my smelter, and I'm going to place it right about here for now. Okay, and as a reminder, the smelter can accept 30 ore per minute to make 30 ingots per minute, which means if we want to fully utilize the 60 ore per minute that we're production at that miner, we need 2 smelters. We currently don't have a way to make the ore line split, but soon I think one of the next things I'm going to get is going to be the splitter and merger technology, which will allow that to happen. But for now, we're just going to go ahead and first off, remember, input and output face is important. So I put this backwards so that it was outputting towards me. I want to rotate it. Notice when I rotate it now, by the way, it snaps, so that's pretty cool. That's pretty neat. And also, holding shift is going to be a very important thing in a minute here. I'll show you what that's all about. But let's get this guy connected. Now, he might be a little bit off, and if you don't like that being a little bit off, you could always just remove it and replace the thing, right? So if you want to have it more in line with where the thing is, that might be cool. And that looks a little bit cleaner, right? It's a little bit nicer. And I'm going to connect this power line right over to you. And don't forget, because we picked up the thing, we have to reset the recipe so that it's back to smelting copper. Now what I'm going to do next is place a constructor, which is, remember, going to need those reinforced plates. So let's go ahead and place a craft bench here so that we can craft. I'm going to make like 6 or 8 of these reinforced plates, and they're not terrible to make, but you know, we're going to want a few. Actually, I'm just going to do 4 because of the number of iron bars that I have at the moment. Hey, change. I guess we're going to make 6. I changed my mind. There you go. Not too shabby. So now I'm going to make my constructor. And what you're going to find here is, because we're building on foundations, notice when I place it here. See how it has this green line that's showing up? That's actually in line with the machine that we're facing here. So when we place it the right way, we'll see this green line kind of appear. That means that we are properly lined up with that machine. So that when we run a conveyor belt between them, it's like perfectly straight. So when you're building your factories, that's going to play very useful roles. And that holding control for snapping thing is going to be a big part of that. So now we're taking 15 copper ingots, and he needs power, by the way, to start accepting them. But 15 copper ingots per minute to 30 wires per minute. And we just blew a fuse, which I'll talk about in a second. But back to the math, this guy makes 60. This is using 30 to make 30. This is using 15 to make 15. So we basically want 2 constructors per smelter. All right, so before we go fix our blown fuse, I'm going to build a quick storage container here. And storage containers will do the same thing, where you'll get kind of this green line so that you can kind of place it. And I'm not building the best layout just yet because it's very basic, but there you go. Nice green line, nice straight conveyor belts. They look a little bit better. Now, we have a problem. We have no power. Did we run out of biofuel? No, it said fuse blown. What's that mean? So basically, you have power supply and you have power demand. If your demand exceeds your supply, the whole thing shuts down. So what happened is, remember, we're able to produce 20 megawatts of power here, 20 megawatts of power here. So that's a total of 40 megawatts capable. We hit a point where we tried to consume 44 megawatts. We over-exceeded our power demand, and that blew our fuse, which happened right here. So we can pull the lever to reset the fuse, which doesn't matter because we're still not producing the 44 megawatts that we need. As soon as we pull that, it tries to pull 44 out of a system that can only do 40. No go. So in order to supply enough power, we need another power plant. So we've got our biomass burner that we got access to a little bit ago. I'm just going to place it right here. We're going to throw some biofuel in there, some solid biofuel, right? You guys have about 60-ish left. We connect this guy up to power. So now it's part of our whole power network. And you'll notice that we now are able to Well, capacity's at nothing because everything's shut off because of the blown fuse, but this guy actually does 30 megawatts, so the individual building biomass burners do 30 each rather than 20 each. So it's 20, 20, 40 plus 30 equals 70. We now pull the lever, and everything's back up and running. So if we pay attention to our power consumption graph, we'll see our capacity, which is the gray line up here, is up at 70 now. Our current consumption is around 32, 36. Now there's a difference between consumption and production. And I think that relates to the new power system that I don't fully understand yet. They changed this in Update 4. They added batteries, and we don't have access to them yet, which is why we're not really understanding it. So I think once we get access to batteries, it'll be more clear. But for now, we'll see consumption and production is probably about the same. And then your max consumption is 44. So every now and then, our power spikes up to 44. It's generally under that, but it's spiking up to 44 every now and then. So we need to be able to supply enough power. If we had batteries, we might not have needed this extra guy, because the batteries would charge and then supply that little burst of power as needed every now and then. But we'll get to that in the future. All that's going to become a big part of the gameplay later on. But for now, early game, you just need to have more production than consumption at all times. And if you go above at this point, because we're doing 70, the moment we hit 71 megawatts, boom, blows the fuse, shuts down the whole system, right? So knowing that is important. But at this point, we should now have automated copper, lots of concrete coming in. Copper is automatically turning into wires because, as I mentioned, the only thing that you can do with copper at this point is make wires. There are other things in the future that we'll use copper for, but right now the only thing copper can be made into is the wires. So we might as well do that. Let's go check out what our next milestone to unlock should be. I really think we should get into splitters and mergers. That feels like a good time to me. So, that might be under logistics. Yeah, that's what's up. That's 100% what I want. There's also field research. We want that eventually, but not just yet. Not super necessary. Part assembly is going to be super important very soon. Resource sinks will be useful. Logistics Mark II will be useful. These are faster logistics belts. They can do 120 items per minute rather than 60. We don't really have anything at the moment that does more than 60, so we don't need to worry about it just yet. But very soon, yes, these are going to be very useful. So I think the biggest thing we should do now, we're going to select a milestone for logistics. So let's do that. I'm going to put away you. And we've got one of these out of the 300 we need. But I'm going to go ahead and grab all these dudes here, and I'm going to change this recipe to be iron plates. And that seems like a good time to me. Cool. So you go back to being iron plates. Oh goody, another berry has grown. Give me the foods. And let's see how our... now, we could... Absolutely, once we get logistics, we will improve the production of copper here. But as you guys can easily see, we are doing 60 here, 30 usage, 15 usage. So that one copper node will be able to supply, eventually, 4 wire producers. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. We will definitely be taking advantage of that at some point in the future. But for now, we're obviously backstuffing on copper production here. So that's why we have 90 copper ingots. We're soon going to have 100 copper ingots, and then this belt will backstuff, and then this will fill up with 100 copper ingots, and we'll just, backstuff the whole line. But for now, I'm just going to sneak these out of here, and I'm going to manually craft a few wires just because we need 300. Might as well get her done manually. All right, with that made, we're at 271 of the items, but while I was making it, we were obviously also making wires over here, which means that we should have a very healthy amount of wire available to us, well over the 300 we need, which means we can unlock this milestone now. That's perfect. So as you can see, the game is heavily encouraging you to automate. Manual crafting is a little slow and painful. Automation is king in this game, which should be no surprise to anybody. So let's launch our launch pod and unlock logistics. Dun 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 dun! Hooray!
Milestone reached. Conveyor belts can now merge, split, and lift to increase the complexity and efficiency of your factory. We encourage you to consider more verticality when it comes to factory logistics to streamline short-range transportation.
Okay.
The productivity display will help you measure and improve the productivity of individual buildings to aid with optimization.
I feel like this is the productivity display and we already had it, unless I'm missing something. I'm not sure what the productivity display unlock is, but meh. We did it. We did the thing. So field research might be one of the ones we want to get next. You know, and part assembly. I think those should be the two priorities we get next. Field research and part assembly. And each of those are going to play an important role in our factories going forward. However, before we get into that, we should probably tear up a little bit of what we've got and go for more efficient part production. Because right now we're doing okay with producing of parts, but we definitely want to do it more efficiently. I want to have foundations across the entire world here. And basically, I never want to build on dirt again. I want to always have foundations like this because it allows for a lot more efficient design. Like, look how neat and clean this looks compared to the messiness that is that. Now, I'm going to very briefly show you how splitters and mergers work, just to make sure you understand how this goes here, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dismantle everything we built a minute ago. Goodbye, everybody. Conveyor belt, where are you? There you are. Cool. Because what I want to do, instead of having this conveyor belt here, I'm actually going to check out my splitter real quick. So we just got access to two things. Well, three, really. We got the lift, which is basically a vertical conveyor belt. It goes up and down. End of story. We also got the merger, which combines 3 conveyor belts into one. So if you have 3 buildings, you can feed into one building, right? We also have the splitter here as well. So what I think I'm going to do is have a splitter here. We're going to line it up. And what you can see is for the splitter, there's 1 input, which is the orange side, and 3 outputs, which are the blue sides. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. Now, why did you line up, but you're not really lined up? Splitter. That seems a little bit better to me. Yeah, that's what's up. Now, as a pro tip, you can also just drop splitters directly on a conveyor belt, and they will kind of override the belt and turn it into a splitter, like so. Right? So if I place this here, it would automatically connect the input on the back, the output on the front, and then I could split off the sides. But I'm not going to do that right now, right? So now that I've got a splitter, what I'm going to do is basically... we can design it however we want, but we could have 2 smelters here now, right? So like we could have 1 here and 1 here. Now if I hold left control, so see how like right now I'm looking at it, if I hold left control, it's automatically going to move the smelter just a little bit to the right so that it lines up with the smelter behind it. That's a huge deal right there. So now these 2 smelters are kind of equally aligned with each other, and that's pretty neat, right? I'm going to go ahead and bring this power line over to here so that I can connect these 2 buildings to each other. And then we can do something like this and this. And if we don't like the way that curvature looks, we could totally do something like this. That's a little bit tight. See how much nicer that looks? So it's up to you guys if you want to get fancy. You know, or we could have moved the smelters a little bit closer to each other. There's a handful of ways to design your factories to make them look nice. But now, what we have are copper ingots and copper ingots. So now we have this guy making 60 ore, bringing the ore in. It's splitting evenly, so 30 ore is going off in this direction, 30 ore is going off in this direction, and these guys are each consuming 30 ore, so now we're smelting all the copper that we're getting, which is awesome. And like I said, don't worry about voiding ore, right? So I've got 223 copper ore in my inventory that just started to become a mess because it was all sitting on those belts and in those machines that I just broke. I don't care about them. Ore is unlimited. Don't feel bad about voiding ore. There you go. Rant over. You know, we're used to Minecraft where, like, you know, there's limit. No, just do whatever. Doesn't matter. Now here we can really kind of, you know, go a little bit hog wild on this. So what we could do is we can make sure that we're aligned, and it's kind of hard in the new rendering to see the green arrow thing, or the green line, but it's right about there. So if I did that, that would be cool. And then I could come over here and snap grid this. I need more things. More cables. But middle click to copy the constructor, hold control to kind of make sure that he's snapped correctly. And if you want it right next to each other, that's cool. Ta-da! And now what we can do, if we want to, is something like this. We can throw the splitter right on the line here. Now this is a little bit tight and a little bit compact, so pay attention to how tight we're getting here. This is not probably the best way to do it. We should have a little bit more spacing. But check that out, right? It's a little bit tight, so it doesn't look great. So we should be a little bit more spacing, but it does technically work. Cool. Now these machines are both idle, so what I'm going to do is grab myself this dude here, pop this guy here probably, and then connect you and you. Cool. And what we could do from this point is get a storage container. We could line it up probably about here. We'll run this thing into here, and what I'm going to now place for logistics is a merger on this line. And doing so see how it, like, basically it's like we didn't do anything yet, because it made this the input and it made that the output. But I can now bring this belt ish, encroaching on others' clearance, really? There you go. So now it'll merge these two items. So this is producing 30 wires per minute from the 15 ingots. This is producing 30 wires per minute from the 15 ingots, which means 60 wires per minute are going into this thing. And that's important because 60 wires per minute is how much this belt can handle, right? So we've reached the maximum amount of item transfer on this belt going in here. If we were to try to place another constructor, for example, this guy, right? If we set up two constructors here, that would be 30 and 30 is 60. Bringing that 60 in here would be 120 going in. This belt wouldn't be able to keep up. And that's why you would need a tier 2 belt. You would put a tier 2 belt here, which can do 120 items per minute. But for now, this will be enough, right? For now, we're good. I'm not going to do anything with this smelter yet. So this is kind of planning for the future a little bit. We'll leave this smelter here. But now we're producing a lot of copper wires, which is awesome. And we're producing a lot of concrete. We'll probably do something similar with the concrete system to combine them into one concrete input, so we don't have to do two different locations to get access to our concrete, right? Like, I don't want to have to go to two different dudes to get concrete, right? We'll come over here and get this one, and then I have to run all the way over there to get that one. Bad idea. I'll probably just run a long conveyor belt over here and merge them somewhere-ish. But for now, you know what it is? Wrapping up point. We're definitely at that point for this episode, so we made some really good progress today. Access to splitters and conveyors, fully automated wires, got a lot of concrete production coming in, so we've got a lot of good resources happening. Next episode, I also don't like to have ingots on me anymore, generally. You know, I don't think there's a need for me to carry around copper ingots at this point, because we've automated all our copper production. So don't be afraid to void copper ingots either. Void whatever. I mean, metal-wise. The stuff that you dig out of the ground that you have unlimited of. I wouldn't recommend voiding things like, you know, your berries, because those you don't have unlimited of, but you get what I'm saying. Wrapping up point for the episode. Daryl20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll come back next time. We will clean up our iron production line. We will get splitters and mergers and set down another miner right here so that we can automate plates and rods at the same time. And then we're probably going to want to break into part construction. So once we automate plates and rods, we can then look at automating fully the reinforced iron plates and have those auto-crafted. But for now, it's wrapping up point. So Daryl20 signing off. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let me know in the comments how the video was. Good video quality? Better than last episode? Just curious. Take it easy.